Hi everyone and welcome to the University of Tasmania's Application Assistance and Support webinar. My name is Jack and I'm joined today by my colleague Ethan, who you won't see, but he is there fielding any questions that you do have. So please feel free to jump in there. There should be a little sort of question box for you to type in any questions you do have throughout the course of the webinar. Today we'll be going through a very brief presentation on how to apply. Then we'll actually be going in depth and doing an application itself. This session will be recorded, so if you do need to come back and revisit this at any time to sort of to stop and pause, I might go pretty quickly in some areas or quite slow in others, depending if there's any questions or concerns there as well. So you will be able to access that post-webinar. As I said, if you do have any questions at all, just pop them in there and they'll either be answered as we go, depending on what the question might relate to, or Ethan will sort of hand those to me near the end. We're just going to wait about another sort of 30 seconds or so until, and just see a few more people are sort of trickling in at the moment. It is important to mention as well, this is a domestic application session. So basically this application form will relate to you is if you are an Australian resident, citizen, or living in Australia to study. So if you are seeking sort of as an international applicant, this webinar may not be the most beneficial for you. But again, if you do have those questions as well, please just pop them in the chat box and we'll try and direct you to the best sort of spot. And our team can certainly make contact with you when needed. So let's get this underway. So applying to the University of Tasmania is made directly on our website. If you are joining us from interstate at all today, you may be aware with the various admission centres that you do apply through. With the University of Tasmania, we try and make it as straightforward as possible, and that is just straight through our website. And they can be made at that link there, which we will jump onto very shortly. It is free to apply for these domestic applications, and you can apply for up to 5 courses at a time. If you're a year 12 listening, or even someone who's looking to change career or jump into study for the first time, I know when I first made my first ever application to the university, I had 4 different courses there because I genuinely didn't know what I wanted to study. And I made the decision about 2 weeks before the course started. So that's why we allow up to 5 courses. And you can get an offer for each of those, which is really handy. As I said, you can get admitted into those and then make the decision of what you want to pursue. As it mentions there as well, remember to include other course options that interest you and can increase your chance of success. They could be 5 very different courses or 5 very similar courses. There's no real restriction on that at all. So this is what the application portal initially looks like, and I'm actually going to jump straight into doing this application. So if you are following along at all, this might be a good time to get a browser up. Or as I said, this is being recorded, so you will be able to sort of view this back. But you'll just come to the standard UTAS website first and foremost. This is just utas.edu.au, or by searching for the University of Tasmania in your preferred browser, that should come up as well. Now, this web page might change from time to time, the appearance of it, the wording on it, but typically you'll find a big red button that says apply. We're also on apply now sort of tab up here. So we're going to hit the big red one. And then you typically, you should be greeted with this page as well. So applying to the University of Tasmania today, you'll sort of see some different portals here. As we mentioned, this is where international applicants might choose to go through, and undergraduate applicants, which is what we're going to do today. Now you'll find here, it sort of asks you if you're ready. Sort of gives you a couple more options as well if you are a year 12 to go through here to look at our sort of early entry program we did run this year. And inquire now is to then lead you to some questions, which we will touch on later if you do have further questions after this webinar and would like to speak to someone. But again, we're going to hit another red button that says apply now. Now, if this is the first time you're applying for the University of Tasmania or the first time in this admission cycle, so for 2021, we are going to hit this grey new applicant sign up here. Now you'll see this will prompt you to create a new account. In this instance, I have one already sort of pre-made just so I didn't have to set a password and things like that. But you'll simply fill in this page. Making sure your email is correct. We'll ask you to confirm that there, likewise with a password. And this password, I think as well, would be very useful to write down. I think there are some requirements in terms of like a capital letter and a number. That one's not popping up for me at the moment, but that's okay. And then filling in this as well. So these are the details that will pre-fill in your application. And they're pretty straightforward details like title, gender, first name, last name, that's a middle name if you would like to put that one on your record, and additional details here. So this is kind of like the first piece of that. You'll notice as well here, if you have currently studied at the University of Tasmania, or if you're a current student needing to apply for another course, just by ticking yes here, will then give you a sort of space to put your student number in as well, which is your 6-digit number that is issued to you when you're studying with us. You'll also find with these, some of these are pre-filled boxes. So for example, typing in Oz comes up with Australia, and you will need to click that. Actually typing in Australia isn't sort of what the application needs. It needs to select that pre-selected one. That then prompts you to select the state, and then again, an address, and I think typing in the city or postcode will then, it will automatically pre-fill that as well. So again, a couple of pre-fill options. You might notice, as I mentioned, if you are trying to just free type them, they might not work. So you will need to get them to prompt you with that auto one. And once these are correct, you will just need to tick a couple of boxes, as well as quickly viewing these the brief declaration here. And then you can just simply click back and hit submit. Now, once you have hit submit, you will get sent an email to the nominated email you put up here earlier. And that will come through as like a confirm that you've done this. And there's sort of a link that you'll then click, which then puts you back to the portal. So it just confirms that you did in fact start an application with the university, and it's just making sure those details are correct. Once you've got that, this is where we will now use this. So I'm just going to grab the details I had here. And this will sign in. So this is, it will say welcome with your name, as well as a sort of portal for the course applications and scholarships. So we're obviously applying for courses today. So we're going to click on that one. Now I think this is the one thing I couldn't check. I think it will say start new application. I was unable to have that live at the moment, but in my case, I'll be clicking continue application. But I think that will say start new application for 2021, which is obviously what we want to do. Now it will start here in general. So as I said, I'm going to go through this. I'll try to not go through it too quickly. But as I said, any questions, please just do pop them there and we can revisit these. The first thing I'd like to recommend as well, please take these sort of one question at a time. You can go back in the application later on, but I would certainly recommend just trying to go through and fill in what you need to fill in the first time round, and give it a go, because otherwise jumping back and forth can be quite confusing. So this first bit, in my case, yes, I am an Australian citizen. If I am choosing no, it will then prompt you with the other details required, such as your country of citizenship, your residency, and your passport number. So that's some things that will pop up. So for example, if I actually say no, I don't have an Australian residency visa, it will point you towards doing the international application. So that was what we sort of alluded to at the start of the webinar. And hitting yes, if I do have a residency visa, it then will ask these questions about what type it is, the subclass, the date it was granted, things like that. So some of these, by ticking certain boxes, further boxes will then appear. That's how this system works. So as I said, we are just for this one going to go back to being an Australian citizen in this instance, and was born in Australia, so we will leave that there. Again, like a lot of parts in this application, it will offer some pre-filled suggestions. So if I typed in Australia and left it like that, it might not actually work. We do need to click the one that pops up. And we're going to go next. Now, I know this one sometimes does trick people, because they think, I didn't study year 12 last year, so I have to hit no, and then they get concerned that that's going to then rule them out for a course. This is just purely if you were a year 12 this year or last year, you can then fill in your year 12 information. So depending on where you studied, what sort of certificate of education you did, and also your identification number, because that is how we can then access your results and give you an offer, sort of as hopefully as soon as possible, or when those results are out. In this instance, I'm not going to be a Year 12 leaver, because I did Year 12 a few years ago, so I'm not going to say I've done that recently. So that's okay to tick no on that one. Now this is where you'll be picking your courses. So this is where we, as we said, we can pick up to 5 courses for this one. And it's always handy to have sort of the web page next to you as well, just to make sure you've got sort of the right course code, or the right course and things like that. So what I'm going to do, just as a side thing here, I'm just going to open another tab and go to the UTAS website. I'm going to view all courses, and let's just, for the sake of it, let's go with art. And you'll also notice on these course pages, you can then click the course list, which will show you which ones are here. I'm actually going to go to the humanities section because I want the different Bachelor of Arts, and going to click here, which will then, once I click on the course page, will give me the course code here, which is A3A, and it will also show me entry requirements further down, which is something I'll come back to later. But this is just what I want the course code to make sure I'm applying for the right course. So when I go add preference, I can actually type in Bachelor, which will come up with many. I can type in Bachelor of Arts, and that will come up with the A3A one. As I said, if I was just typing in the course code, it will also come up with that one. So either or works. You'll then be greeted, Arts offers many entry periods. Not all courses do, so that might look a bit more scarce, but you can see where you can apply. So for me personally, I'm a Launceston on campus, so I'm going to be clicking Semester 1 Launceston on campus. Semester 1 starts late February, and Semester 2 is in July, so that's just for reference as well. With the arts one, it will actually ask you if you are wishing to intending to take a theatre and performance major. For this instance, I'm not, and I'm going to click save. Now, as I said as well, this is where you can start adding other ones. So if I was looking at business, I can type that in, and again, it will give me all the list of courses. So it will, without the course code or typing the full thing in, it will give you sort of the extensive list of what we offer. So I'm just going to go to Bachelor of Business. And the Bachelor of Business is a good example of one that also has some different study periods. So when you are on their course page, you can see when the intake is, how long it goes for, and if they operate in standard semesters, if they offer accelerated study periods. But for sake of just keeping this one standard, I'm going to go Semester 1 Hobart off campus. So we have an on-campus option in Launceston and an online option. So I'm going to go next step. Actually, before I do that, I'm just going to click back because I just realized something else. You can actually then move these preferences around. So if you start this and then tomorrow you decide actually business is your preferred course, you just bump that one up there with the arrows. So something to notice as well. Now, this is the government statistical information. We don't need the information to assess the application, but we have to collect it. So in my case, I'm just going to say none, but we also can go 1 or 2. And that will just ask for their highest level of educational attainment. And again, doesn't affect the application, but it is something that is required. So you'll also be asked this, again, did you reside in Australia while completing Year 12 studies? If you say, if you say yes, it will ask you which state. So for me, it was Tasmania, in Launceston, and again, it will pre-fill. So just coming back to pre-filling a lot of things for this application. And you can also opt to let us know if you're an Aboriginal person or a Torres Strait Islander. And again, for myself, I'm going to click no for both of those, or you can also choose to not answer that one. Do I speak a language other than English at home? If you do click yes, they will just ask which one. And again, it will ask with a pre-fill option. And again, in my instance, I am going to click no for this one. And the final one in this particular section is, do you have a disability, impairment, or long-term medical condition that might affect study? By clicking yes, you can then sort of see if it fits into one of these categories. I thought other might have had a text box, but that's okay. And then you can also click yes or no if you'd like to hear about the support services, equipment, and facilities. So if you do have one of these, we'd certainly recommend clicking yes, because someone will reach out to you and can be very helpful with that. And again, for me personally, I'm going to click no. Now, qualifications, this is where sometimes people can get a little bit stuck. So I'm just going to delete this one because I know that this is a pre-filled one. So this section is where we look at our Year 11 study. Now, not everyone will have Year 11 study. So this particular box here that says, do you have secondary study is what you'll click. So if you say no, you can simply click next step. I'm going to say yes in this instance. Again, coming back to that pre-fill, it has to come up with the pre-fill for Australia. The state and territory, I'm going to go Tasmania. School, I'm just going to go Launceston College, but again, by typing, you'll see these options come up, and it will need to be one of these. So if you're actually typing it and your school doesn't come up, I'm not sure if is it other still comes up. I think they're all listed there now, so it will come up as Launceston College. It will give you a couple of options. Again, it doesn't matter which one you click. Just click the one that does apply to you. So again, I'm going to hit complete, and for me personally, it was 2014. So this will also ask what year you completed this, and then it is really important to mention, you do need to click Save Qualifications to My Application. So if you just hit Next, this won't save. You do need to hit Save Qualifications, and then it will load. Actually, it did instantly that time. It will then show what you've put in. So we can hit Next step. And Year 12 as well, a lot of people might have done Year 11, but not Year 12, so you would just click no. But again, in my instance, I did Year 12, so I'm going to put in the same options again. You can put in a different school, so if you move schools in between those years, that is something you can do as well, so don't stress. And you'll notice with Year 12, it does ask an additional question, or 2 additional boxes. It does ask what the program was, so if it was in Tasmania, it will most likely be the Tasmanian Certificate of Education. If it is other, it will ask you to type it. If it's homeschool, it'll ask for something. So these are the options that do come up. For me, I completed it. It will ask again for the year of completion. So it was obviously the year after Year 11, so 2015. And you don't need to remember your student number if it's from some time ago, so don't stress about that, because I don't know what mine is. But if you are, again, if you were sort of a current Year 12 or a very recent leaver, that would be like in the Tasmanian sense, like your task number, or I think like your VCE, QCE identification. So one of those ones. And again, we're going to hit save. So it's now saved my Year 11 and Year 12 study on there. So we're going to hit next step. Now, post-secondary is your things like your certificates, diplomas, if you've studied at university before, any qualifications there, complete or incomplete, and this is where we put these. So I'm going to use an example of doing something at maybe at TAFE or the University of Tasmania. So I'm going to type in Australia, and it will ask you what it was. So for example, there's quite a diverse range here. You might have done a Certificate 3 as part of like your Year 12. Some students have done that. You might have done one recently, you might just be finishing one now, or you might even still be studying it, which is more than okay. In this instance, let's just go like a Certificate 3, and typically that's at TasTAFE. Course or program, I'm just going to type in business. Again, your ID number if you do know it. And we'll also ask for your start and finish year. So if this is something that you started in 2019, let's go 2018 to finish in 2019. That's great. And you'll also have to put your status. So again, we'll put complete for this one. And have you been excluded from this course or program? I think if you click yes, it will then prompt you to check something there. It's if you were sort of kicked out of the course, or you would just hit no here if you weren't. And again, we need to click Save Qualifications. I'm also going to mention maybe I'll go Australia again. I'm going to go a bachelor degree, and I'm going to go the University of Tasmania. I'm going to say I might just, for argument's sake, say business with no ID number, and I might say that I started that in 2019. My last year of enrolment was 2020, and my status was either currently studying. So if you were switching courses, you might go that to say that you're switching from one bachelor to another, or incomplete if I decided that I did it for a year and it wasn't quite what I wanted to do. So that's something as well you could mention, and you would hit Save Qualifications. Oh, whoops, so there you go. It will then prompt you with a nice red bar if you haven't ticked something. I forgot to tick no that I wasn't excluded from that particular course. So we'll then list these. You can list quite a few of these depending on what you've done. Some people that I've spoken to have done like 7 certificates or a couple of different degrees at various levels at various universities. So you can add, I don't know if there's a limit, but just add all complete and incomplete study. Now, professional qualifications, if you click yes, you can then see the option. These are things like advanced trade certificate, fire emergency services officer, police services, registered child health certificate, etc. So these are again sort of like an additional step on top of that. In my instance, I'm going to click no, but again, this asks for the sort of the similar type of information on there. Employments, this is another one that will depend from person to person. Typically, we'd look for things that are relevant to that. So for example, if you'd done sort of like some teacher's aid work or something like that, and you were applying for, education, you might like to put this in there, and you would just put your job title, your company or employer name, the location again, which is countries, which it prompts you there with the 3 characters, and it will come up again with the pre-fill. You will need to fit it into sort of one of these job categories, which I do know sometimes people are not quite sure what they're wanting to choose. And then as well, it will mention the year that it started or the year that it year you started and year you finished, or if it's ongoing, because that's for some people very true. It's still ongoing at the moment. And what's the other one? The total duration as well. So if you've been there from half a year up to 10 or more years. And you also have industry, so you might find the category is quite broad, but the industry sort of narrows it down a bit. So if it's mining, construction, arts, whatever that might be. And you also sort of mention your main duties performed here. So if it was preparation work, if it was assistant work, if it was running a business, running a state level operation, that's where that would get mentioned. And again, you have to hit save qualifications because otherwise it doesn't go on there and it can't be assessed. And because I clicked yes and didn't fill it in, it's given me all of these. So I want to click no. Now, this actually is where it will tell me sort of details and things like that. So this is all the application overview. It will tell you your address and sort of everything like that. It will tell you the courses that you've applied for. Again, it will then prompt me just to remind me of my answer for the Bachelor of Arts because I said no, I didn't want to do that particular major. And it will also mention these other things that we referenced. So the parent guardian options, the year 12 location, those government statistics. It's just kind of like it's a recap basically of everything that you've done here. Shows your year 11 and 12, and this is where you can then hit edit and go back. So if you thought, actually, I've made a mistake on this one, by hitting edit, it will come back here, and you can then edit those or delete those and re-enter them. The reason I said before about not jumping around if you can avoid it is because you then sort of have to click next to keep progressing. Sort of like if you come here, you might need to then go through, actually that might not be the case now, don't worry. Still, I would recommend going through one by one as it does make it a lot easier. When you get to application summary, you can't click there. You actually do need to go to employment and hit next to sort of unlock that one to use at the moment. And then we would hit next. Now, uploading supporting documentation is something that I know get a lot of questions about, or a lot of, I guess, concerns or confusion. This is where you would upload to sort of prove that you've done those things. So for example, typically if you're 5, 10, 15 years removed from year 11 and 12, you don't need to upload those. Again, as I've said, I'm not actually quite sure where my documents would be from those years. So that's sort of more so potentially relatable if you're current year 12 or in the last couple of years. The post-secondary qualification, as I said, the business one that I said I did, I would have to upload a copy of that like certificate of completion to sort of prove that I've done that. And with the University of Tasmania one, in this instance, if I'd put in my ID number as well to say that I had studied here, the university would know because they've obviously taught me. But you can also upload, like you could request from your other university or institution, like a copy of your results for the year, those particular units, etc. So you would upload that there as well. Now, general application documents, this is, if you've had a name change, you need to just prove that's the case and your previous name and current name. And other documents could be a variety of things. Could be, like we said, it could be a resume, it could be like a reference from your employer when we were talking about the employment experience, things like that. This last sort of thing, authority to act, this gives authority for someone like a parent or guardian or partner to help with the application, such as submitting documents. So it means they can access it. So you can either hit yes or no for that one. I'm just going to click no. By getting to the next step, it then basically says, do you want to submit? And you would hit submit. Now I'm not going to do that because I'm going to go back through and do some things on here. But once you've hit submit, you've been given an application number that will get emailed to you. And that's sort of when you call us, when you email us, that is the application number you would reference. So we know how to check, and that's just a really good number to write down somewhere. Now, if I remove my study, it'll make sense shortly. So I'm just going to remove all of this, and I have applied for a bachelor program. You'll see a box has popped up here called personal competency statement. I'm going to hit next. I've got to hit no there. Done that a couple of times. And hit no. Now, you will need a personal competency statement depending on what previous qualifications you have put in, also what program you've applied for and things like that. So potentially, if you haven't completed sort of like college, if you haven't completed those additional certificates we were talking about or further study, you might be prompted to do this. So as it does mention, we all have different paths in life. A competency statement gives you the chance to show us that. It is required from applicants who did not complete year 12 or completed it more than 5 years ago and don't hold a post-secondary qualification, such as a certificate for or higher. So that is when it will be required. By clicking yes, that will open this. And where it says, please note it's recommended you prepare the answers in a separate document. Absolutely. So what I would do is I would actually copy these into a Word document and then make some notes before copying here, just as you don't want to accidentally exit out and lose your progress or something like that. So certainly put these in a Word document and sort of work on them at your own pace and when you've got that time. You'll notice there's 4 different categories, and to sort of break them down, this first one looks at your learning strategy. So this looks at how you've potentially done self-directed study or motivated yourself over that time. So these don't necessarily have to apply to your study journey. Like we said, not everyone might have had that study. So you might have worked somewhere for 5 or 10 years since finishing school and didn't go and do a certificate or something at university. So you might have managed a team, you might have managed something at work, you might have had responsibility for that. And that's where you can talk about this. So if you're working in something like retail, you have to manage your time well, you have to prioritize tasks, prioritize customers. You might have to work independently because you're going to be working independently on those sales. Self-motivation would be looking at if you've potentially had to meet a sales target or motivating yourself if you were going up positions within the workplace. And then also talking about like awareness of the workload and time commitment. So if you were committed to, I don't know if your work was going to come back a bit or if you were going to do part-time or full-time study, how you might manage that. The second one looks at those communication skills, writing clearly, correctly, and concisely, expressing your thoughts, evidence of oral communication. So again, speaking to people, speaking in groups and by yourself. And that actually ties in as well as working as part of the team. So if you've had a job, had an interest, to be honest, outside of just, it might be sport as well. That could be something you refer to. Sport or a community, certainly part of a team. Achievement and experience is the third one. So this demonstrates any personal achievement. It could be jumping back into study. It could be, honestly, I think I've seen people sometimes learning about and writing about like when they had to get their license, if they had a difficult path to doing something like that, doing something that required them to motivate themselves and commit time to that. So that's really important. Study can very much be likened to that, where you are making a commitment and you need to make sure you're doing that every week. Talking about informal training and short courses as well. Adapting to new situations. It might be changes at work, changing workplaces, changing teams for sport. If you've ever moved house, for example, and might be fitting in with a new community, there's lots of different sort of angles you might take with this. And skills and knowledge as well. So evidence in computer skills might just be the fact that you've joined this webinar today. So it's great start, as well as other things you might have done in a work capacity if it's working with any systems. Again, if it's at home, if you've got children and you sort of had to help them with studying from home this year, then that could be another example of that. So there's lots of different scenarios you can use with this. And again, once you have then filled these in with whatever, you'll be able to hit next and it will get us back to that application summary. So I think if I actually click no and I haven't got stuff there, yeah, it says you must provide a personal competency statement. So that's kind of the application process. I hope that made sense. I know I've been talking at you for some time, and as I said, you will be able to revisit this as well after. Just looking here, we also have looking here just at some key dates as well. Sometimes people ask, when can I apply? Applications are open now, and I recommend applying sort of soon. Looking here, semester 1 does start on the 22nd of February. So if you are applying for something that starts in semester 1, would recommend well and truly before then. So maybe, over the next month or so would be a really good time. And then you'll notice as well, semester 2 starts on Monday, the 12th of July. So again, you could apply for that. That's obviously 8 or so months away. It gives you time to sort of prepare. But those are sort of the key dates. So we recommend applying as soon as possible. If you are uploading documents that I forgot to mention earlier, you will need to make sure they are not an image. They will need to be like a PDF, so you might need to scan those. When you're uploading those, it will tell you what files are and aren't supported. And that's just sort of, I think it will actually it won't let you upload it if it is the wrong type of file. I suppose I'll fly over now. If we've had any questions come through, Ethan, any that I might be able to answer about the application process at all. Just having a look. So this is a process that you can also, if you do have any issues with it at all, you can contact us at any time. And this is actually where I'll just quickly jump back into, get my PowerPoint up very briefly. We do have some details. This is also ties in with this actually. So on each of those course pages that I referenced, you'll find a set of entry requirements, and they will ask you, they will sort of tell you what's required. So if it is that previous certificate study, if it's a bachelor study, whatever that might be, that will be listed on the course page as well. You can also apply for scholarships. When we first started the application portal, you would have noticed there was 2 options. There was course applications and scholarship applications. By hitting the scholarship one, that will then sort of put you into that sort of space, and you'll be able to look and see what's required there. See if you're eligible for recognition of prior learning. This is typically something that happens if you've, as I mentioned before, if I'd started a degree of some sort and then wanted to do another one. So if I'd done business and then wanted to do arts, as I applied for, I would look at potentially seeing if any units are transferable, seeing if I can get credit for those. So there is a particular, I'll see if I can pop that one up somewhere here, actually. We'll go post-secondary. I'm not quite sure where that one's popping up, so I'll have a play through in a second, but that's okay. And we'll jump back here very briefly, but you can also see, like I said, it's typically if they're related units, so they would need to have some form of correlation. If you're applying for arts and you've done science, then maybe there's not, sort of many transferable there. Once you do receive sort of communication, if you have received a spot in the course, it will then come up with accept your offer. You'll get an email that will say you've received an offer, or you might get a text or a phone call from someone. So you'll log back into the portal we looked at this morning. So looking through that, apply, undergraduate applicants, course applications, etc. So what we would do there is it will come up with a response required, and you will then need to click view offer. And you'll need to, there'll be like a red button that pops up that says acknowledge, which is sometimes what people get stuck on because it doesn't quite pop up in where you think it might. But that's how you can then accept your offer, defer your offer, reject your offer, etc. And it's important to check your eStudent account for student announcements. When you accept, you sort of get like all these little pop-ups of your ID number, your email, next steps and things like that. And they're really handy, just making a note of those. So I always take like a photo of it or write it down on a piece of paper that you're not going to lose. and then that way you can sort of log back in and look at your offer. And eStudent is where you will then do like your form for HEC support, looking at your study plan, things like that. And yeah, remember, we're always here for you as well. So what I'd certainly recommend is if you do have any questions post webinar as well, you can get in touch by calling this number, or also potentially sending us an email on course.info@utas.edu.au, and perhaps put in the subject line application webinar or application assistance, so we know that's what actually what you're looking for. You'll also find, if you are just looking on the website, next to the apply button, there's this lovely inquire button. And this is also where you can request help. So by filling this in with your first name, last name, email address, phone, question, etc., it will then sort of let you fill that in. So as I said in the question, you might just say application assistance, and that's sort of what you're after, and what best describes you. So this is also just where some additional detail to sort of help us out, show you what sort of category you fit into. How did you hear? Citizenship or visa status, because this will also then depend if we're trying to offer domestic help or international help. And then the category of question too. So as we said, managing my application, it might be how to apply, and then you would submit your question. So I think that's that. Ethan, have we had any questions come through that might be good to answer for everyone, or have you been pretty across those so far?
Hi everyone. So far I feel like I'm getting across most questions, but a few, Jack. When do applications close? And we've even had another question if anyone was interested in a tour. Yeah, Jack, maybe go over what we can do if anyone would like to come and visit us here on campus.
Yeah, for sure. So applications typically close sort of around the cutoff, sort of around that first-ish week of semester, or in the week or so lead up to it. As I said, would certainly recommend applying in December or January because the application can take weeks to assess, and then we want to get you enrolled. We want to get you comfortable with starting at the University of Tasmania. So wouldn't recommend applying in February, or if you do, very early February. But certainly over the next few weeks, and it will actually sort of, as I said, cut off around that time when semester does look to start up. In terms of visiting the campus, I would certainly recommend putting in that Inquire Now button. We have done, the process will certainly depend on sort of COVID restrictions and things like that, but we have done sort of face-to-face appointments. We've done enrolment sessions. That's where you could come to campus. So you did mention in your question that you'd like to do a campus tour, or you'd like to come to the campus, just mention which campus. If you'd like to talk to someone about sitting down and doing an application with them, if you'd like to ask some specific, that's the word, course questions, then we can certainly arrange that. So just by putting that in an Inquire Now form, that's the best way, because that will come to us. We can see which area it needs to go, whether that might be if it's online, so we can give you a call or do like a face-to-face Zoom, Zoom, or if you're in the northwest, the north, or the south, or also interstate, we can see what we can do. Any other ones coming there through at the moment, Ethan, or are you just rapidly answering those?
Try my best to rapidly answer. I think that at the moment we've had some great questions from everyone. Thank you. Some probably a little bit more directed to personal situations and so on. I think we've covered off a lot of the sort of general questions, but yeah, of course, keep them coming. If I think that it'd be great to share with the group, I'll get you, Jack, to cover off. We might just give it a few moments then, if you're a good chat, to see if any more questions come in.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, please just always feel free to get in contact with us. As I said, I've done, especially this year as well, many just calling over the phone. Sometimes you might get stuck on something in the application because you're typing something in and the pre-fill doesn't come up, and we really just want to find out what the issue is. You can give us a call at any time. We have a fantastic contact team that can help out with those questions. If it is something where you think it is a bit, I guess, longer, so you want to, as I said, sit down, arrange a time to talk to someone, you can actually mention as well in this inquiry when you'd like to talk. A lot of people, like I said, I've spoken to, they might have said, look, Wednesdays are great for me. Is there a time that someone can give me a call, or I can come to campus and we can have a chat? And someone will then liaise with you as well. We do our best to get back to those as quick as we can. And as I said, especially would recommend getting your application in over the next sort of 3 or 4 weeks before Christmas is good, because when your application's in, you can just let it sit there, not worry about it for a while until you then get an offer and we can process that. So that's the really that's the recommendation. Doing it in the new year as well. A lot of other people are doing it in the new year, so the application response time might be slightly slower, meaning you're not quite sure when you can get organised to do things. So yeah, as I said, certainly recommend doing that one sooner rather than later. I'm just seeing if there's anything else I might have missed on this application portal. I think it actually lists here as well when you are on it. If you do need any help, please refer to the frequently asked questions or contact the university on that phone number we talked about. By hitting the application FAQs, this might also help. So you can then search the Ask Us here as well, and sort of see what pops up. I think if I type in application, that might come up with some things. Yeah, so again, as you can see, there's 284 frequently asked questions here about that. So it talks about when will I hear back? Do I have to do a personal competency statement? I need to withdraw. What do I need to reply? What do I need to supply, I should say? Can I upload the documents with my application, etc. So you might also find your answers here. But as I said, feel free to pick up the phone, give us a call, and someone will certainly be able to help you out there. And that's why I mentioned that application number, because that is how we can quickly, if we're on the phone, we can type in instead of our magical system, we can type in your application number, and we can also then look at your application sort of with you while we're on the phone and try and help out there. So make sure you've got that one written down, which, as I said, I think does come up at that submission part as well. And yeah, you can also change your password and email here. If I hit return to portal, that comes up with that scholarship thing I mentioned earlier. And up here, sort of, again, lets you change your email, password, or update your profile. So, so certainly plenty of options. Any other questions come through, Ethan, in the last few minutes?
Yeah, we've got one around a study that was completed over 5 years ago. So, diploma degrees and then potentially, certificates on top of that. But I guess to let everyone know that, yeah, when it comes to any sort of higher education, whether it's a diploma or anything like that, generally speaking, it doesn't generally matter how old it is. Please do let us know. We'll assess if it meets the requirements. Our admissions office can let you in. So whether it was completed in the previous years or even back in the 90s or 80s, do be sure to let us know you've completed that degree.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, like I said as well, please do feel free to include that study that is or isn't complete. As we said, the incomplete doesn't necessarily reflect badly or anything like that. People have many reasons for why they may have not finished a course, but that might be the difference of getting in as well. So I know myself, initially started a course that just wasn't quite for me. And I changed course at the end of that and cited my sort of reasons. So I think I just spoke about, but yeah, did some of it, realized that I discovered a passion for something else while I was doing that. So then decided to apply for that course, and therefore it was incomplete. But that, as I said, doesn't reflect badly, except obviously the exclusion we would deal with whatever the process was there as well. We had anything else come through, Ethan? I'm just seeing if sort of a last call for questions to quickly pop them in. As we said, you can always call or email after, but just thought we'll just do one last rally for questions if any have come through. If no more questions, thank you everyone for attending. As I said, it's been recorded, so it will be, I think, either emailed out or accessible after. As I said, get your application in soon. Just let us know. Please sing out if you need help. There's nothing worse than trying to do something over and over again if you can't quite work it out, and we're more than happy to help out. So please do keep an eye on the website for any updates about any more sessions like this, or you might receive an email. Yeah, if that's it, Ethan, unless there's any last gasp questions, I might end the webinar.
I've just got one more in regards to just not so much about the application process, but Commonwealth supported places and full fee paying positions. There isn't a separate application for that. When applying for a course and notifying us that you're an Australian citizen or permanent resident, we will assess you for those places, but not all courses offer Commonwealth supported places. You can find a little bit more on our website under those course pages that Jack was showing earlier. So visit the course page you're interested in. If you notice it's offering Commonwealth supported places, great news. If not, unfortunately, yeah, full fee paying. But again, you don't need to apply separately for those. We'll assess you and offer you a Commonwealth supported place if it's available.
Excellent. Well, as I said, thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. It's been great. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And as I said, please reach out anytime. We're more than happy to help. And yeah, have a great afternoon.